Hello and welcome to Tech Talk, the Bankers video series looking at developments in the global fintech community. I'm Joy Macknight, Technology Editor at The Banker, and I'm joined by Joanne Smith, CEO of Recordsure, a startup that uses artificial intelligence to monitor conversations and help banks' MiFID II compliance efforts. Thanks so much for joining us today, Joanne. Can you tell me why RegTech is so hot right now?
Absolutely. Since the financial crisis in 2008, banks and insurance companies had to effectively increase their systems and controls in order to comply, which meant a heavy cost of compliance over that period. Unfortunately, in order for them to comply properly, they needed to introduce some new technology into the process, hence the inclusion of RegTech. Over this period, we've now seen headcount reduce, and the only way banks and insurance companies can comply is they have to introduce technology to fill the gaps that people ordinarily would fill, and therefore that's why Recordsure has been created to fill those gaps.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit about Recordsure, what you do, but also how you use deep conversation analysis in order to help with the compliance?
I can. So Recordsure was created 4 years ago, and my background is I'm a regulator, an ex-regulator, and so 30 years in compliance. So unlike other RegTech organisations, we've created our solution based on our business knowledge of what banks require and the systems and controls that they need in order to ensure compliance to customers. Recordsure was created to effectively understand conversations between people, advisors and customers, so that we could actually see the insight that a customer is going on and the journey the customer is going on, and effectively what the advisor is doing at the point of sale. This ultimately gives the bank and insurance company more clarity over whether the conversation was compliant or not. We've created this technology by creating a team of data scientists and linguists who have between them created 600 million data points and phrases to understand what actually happens in financial services conversations. This really gives us an insight. It gives the banks an insight and allows us to understand whether conversations are good conversations and ultimately compliant conversations.
So how does Recordsure specifically help banks comply with the new Markets in Financial Instruments Directive 2?
Great. So Recordsure is a recording process, and it allows us to effectively record interactions between advisors and customers, and it allows us to restore those and retrieve them compliantly. It also clearly allows us to understand and have insight into what's being said in those conversations for the purposes of compliance and for the purposes of understanding whether the conversation was a good conversation or not. So it really allows us to get insight into the sales channel and also the customer experience. The FCA created its business plan recently, and as a result, it's really focusing on how banks can use technology to monitor either real-time or near real-time, and use technology to improve its systems and controls in a way it can't do today. Banks can't rely on old, outdated processes, and so therefore they are looking at really innovative technology to improve that, and that's what we're doing with Recordsure. Okay,
so I know you've done a deal recently with RBS and Coutts.
Yes.
Can you tell me how Recordsure is implemented at the banks?
I can. It's not just with Coutts. Effectively, we've got a number of pilots running with a number of large banking institutions. This is clearly in an effort to effectively for the banks to get a real insight into the customer experience and the customer journey in a way that they can't do today. So if you think about banks, a lot of the processes are manual in the way they record their interactions with customers, and the way they monitor those interactions is also manual. So by using technology, we've really been able to create a very efficient way of the banks having a customer insight to ensure that some of the mis-selling challenges that have happened in the past don't happen in the future. So they can be really more proactive, and they can jump onto things in relation to the customer in a way that they can't do today. So for example, if a customer interaction with an advisor is not quite compliant, they can jump straight onto it and make it compliant very quickly, and therefore that will stop it having to be unpicked in the future.
Okay, and from your background as an ex-regulator yourself, what do you think that the regulators like the FCA can do to really stay abreast of all these technology innovations?
Well, I think the first thing they should do is actually use it themselves. They've really made massive strides over the last 3 years to embrace technology. Everything they talk about now, it has a regulatory theme, has a technology theme, and clearly they talk about the sandbox. They've made great ways forward to really improve technology, but they don't use it internally themselves. And if I think about what the regulator does when they go to visit banks and insurance companies, they go along, they take a team of people, they interview people, they make copious notes. It's all very labour intensive. If they recorded that and they could then analyse that conversation, they'd create a transparency that doesn't exist today, and they'd really be able to effectively do their job more efficiently, which is all what technology is all about. It's just doing the job more efficiently using software, not people.
Great. Thank you so much for coming in, Joanne.
It's great to meet you, Joy.